Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Black Girl Book Chat, Sankofa Edition. If you're new here, my name is Larissa, and I am the African American Resource Center Coordinator. All of October, instead of my usual horror or thriller novels, I will be reading novels by our 2024 Sankofa Freedom Award winner, Terry McMillan. So last week I started us off with I Almost Forgot About You. This week, I wanted to kind of read one of her more well-known works. So I decided on How Stella Got Her Groove Back. So this is the new cover for How Stella Got Her Groove Back. It's so pretty. I love these illustrated covers. So good. So I read this last week. I pictured Angela Bassett in this role, obviously, and Tay Diggs in the main male character's role the entire time that I read the book. And I'm excited to go watch the movie again after having reread this book version. And with it fresh in my head, I'm ready to go watch the movie. So be on the lookout for that. We will do a screening. So, How Stella Got Her Groove Back is about Stella, a divorced mother of a 10-year-old son. He's either 10 or 11. Quincy, she's 42 with a great job and money. But she feels kind of stifled. So when Quincy goes to Colorado to spend time with his father, Stella finds herself feeling stagnant. Her son's gone. She kind of doesn't quite know how to fill her days. So she books an impromptu trip to Jamaica. One of her sisters thinks that it's ridiculous to go to another country by herself, but her other sister kind of sends her off with her blessing. And so these two sisters are main characters. Great main characters that kind of add some oomph to the book. So we've got Stella, we've got her two sisters, and they kind of give her opposing advice kind of throughout this entire book. But she goes to Jamaica for like 9 days or something. So she goes down to Jamaica. In the book, we see Jamaica through her eyes. She kind of describes it to us. In this resort that she's staying at, she's enamored by the beauty of it, by how bright the colors of the country are, by how many black people she sees. She makes note that the only white folks that she sees are the ones who are staying at the resort she goes to, and they are mostly couples, a lot of them older. So like I said, I think she's there for about 10 days. So she's ready for this trip, right? She's ready to read by the beach, run on the beach because she works out and is still athletic, and kind of do all those ocean sports like snorkeling and other ocean sports, all the ones that she dares to do. So soon after she arrives, she meets Winston Shakespeare. That's his name. A 20-year-old aspiring chef who's born and raised in Jamaica. And so their love story is kind of quick. They find each other attractive. They share a meal. They go dancing. They eventually sleep together, and then they fall in love. And so Stella is at first wary. And for much of the relationship, we kind of see this wariness play out, right? She's 42 years old. He's 20 years old. He's from another country. His culture is different from hers. And so, like, she knows that she looks good for 42. But compared to his 20, she doesn't quite understand why he wants to be with her. But they kind of maintain this tenuous connection over the course of the book. So after her few days are up, she goes back home. At the end of her trip, returning to some news that kind of shakes up her world a little bit. Quincy comes back from visiting with his dad. And then she still feeling restless, especially after this kind of news that shakes up her life. She books another trip to Jamaica, but this time she takes her son Quincy and her niece with her. So they go back. She gets some more time with Winston, not as much as she wants, but she does get some more time. But she also likes that Quincy gets to meet him, and Quincy seems kind of like it don't really matter that he's 10 years older than me. He's great. And so she likes, right, that her son gets to meet him, that he seems okay with them. And so their connection continues. Eventually, Winston comes to America. And that's kind of when we see if they can work outside of the excitement of a vacation plan. Because essentially that's what Stella kind of at first feels it is, especially with one of her sisters, kind of explaining like, "Hey, you met this young guy. Um, this was a vacation fling. Don't take it seriously." But when he comes to America, we kind of see them in a different light, a little bit more domesticated because they're living together while he's there, and we kind of see the way in which he operates at home and the way in which she navigates a relationship with this man. One of the things that I like about this book is Stella's voice. It's distinct. She's distinct. She sort of rambles a bit using these really long sentences that almost come across like mini tangents, but they help her sort of make sense of these things. You kind of see it as a way for her to process, if you will. So she goes off on these little tangents, these sentences that are paragraphs long, but it works for her. You can very much tell that this is Stella's voice. This is Stella speaking. This book is set in the 90s, so she views herself as a woman of the 90s. She's educated. She makes her own money, and a lot of it, especially for the 90s. She's sexually liberated, right? Like, she is doing well. And so even though the title is How Stella Got Her Groove Back, you don't really see how she lost her groove, if you will. She's pleasantly divorced from a husband who bored her. So she got divorced because she really didn't like this man anymore. But there's no talk of it being acrimonious, right? Like, they just kind of didn't want to be together anymore, so they're not. So pleasantly divorced. She and her son have a fabulous relationship. She's bored by her job, but she makes like $200,000 a year. And losing her job wouldn't hurt for a while. Because she works in money, she knows money. So she has, stocks and bonds or whatever people who make a lot of money have on the side. So like I said, we don't quite see her lose her groove. So the way I think about this book, it read more like a well-off woman approaching middle age who kind of just wants some excitement, right? It's not particularly deep, although Stella does give us some hints about the reality of being Black in America, being Black in Jamaica, because for a lot of people who live in Jamaica, that looks different, right? So we do learn some realities of what it means to be a Black person in America, what it means to be a Black person in Jamaica. But outside of that, we don't see them necessarily affect Stella negatively. And so it's kind of, like I said, a story about a woman who is basking in her Blackness, looking for ways to bring joy into her life. And I like books like that because it's just fun to read books about Black people and other people of color who get to just enjoy being alive. And you see that in this book. You don't necessarily see all of that deep trauma that a lot of books by Black and African Americans tend to kind of focus on. So I do like that about Stella. How Stella Got Her Groove Back. In a way, it reminds me a little bit of I Almost Forgot About You. Kind of that same premise. Woman who's a little bit older, who's divorced, who has kids, is bored with her life, and is hoping to make a change in some way. The change that Stella made is a little bit different from the change that Georgia made, and I Almost Forgot About You, but that theme is the same, where it's almost like they're ready to live another life, right? They've lived this life, and they've gotten to this point where they say, hey, it's okay for me to kind of switch it up and do something different because I'm ready for a different phase in my life. So you see that a lot with How Stella Got Her Groove Back. And you kind of see a little bit about Winston and what his ideals are, what his hopes are. And so I do like that we got to see a young Black man who, for all intents and purposes, has his entire life ahead of him, even though he wants to date a 42-year-old woman, how he is going to navigate a relationship with someone who his parents likely wouldn't approve of because they're probably the same age. You know what I mean? So How Stella Got Her Groove Back, I really liked it. I'm excited to watch the film, which we will screen next year, like January, before Terry McMillan comes to visit us. So be on the lookout for that news. Next week, I am reading Disappearing Acts, which also is a film starring Sanaa Lathan and Omar Epps. I have started reading it. It's interesting, y'all. I cannot wait to finish it and kind of let you know my thoughts in a slightly rambly but still more structured way. So be on the lookout for Disappearing Acts next week. Come pick up How Stella Got Her Group Back from Rooted Seal. And I will talk to you all about Disappearing Acts next week.